The moon hung low over the desolate skyline of a once bustling metropolis, its light reflected off shattered glass and crumbled buildings, casting eerie shadows across the abandoned streets. Silence, profound and unnatural, blanketed the city, a silence broken only by the occasional hum of alien crafts patrolling the skies. Humanity's dominion over Earth had been shattered within weeks. The invaders, tall and sinewy with translucent skin that pulsated with an otherworldly glow, were like phantoms, methodical and merciless in their conquest. Among the ruins, a figure moved like smoke. Cloaked in black, his pale skin glimmered faintly in the moonlight. Lord Alaric, an elder vampire whose name was whispered with both reverence and fear across the centuries, paused atop a crumbling cathedral. His crimson eyes surveyed the devastation below. For centuries, Alaric had ruled his clan from the shadows, secure in their dominion over the night. But this invasion threatened not just humans, but all life on Earth, including his kind. A sharp voice broke his contemplation. "My lord, they are advancing further south," said Cassius, a younger vampire and one of Alaric's most trusted aides. His face was tight with concern. "Entire cities have been wiped clean. Even the strongest clans are falling." Alaric turned, his expression inscrutable. "And what of the humans?" "They are scattered, disorganized," Cassius replied. "Their weapons are useless against these creatures. Their armies crumble like dry leaves." The elder vampire frowned. He had little love for humanity, but they served an essential role in maintaining the balance of power. Without them, his kind would starve. The aliens were a far greater threat than he had anticipated. As if on cue, a low rumble echoed through the air. Alaric and Cassius turned toward the source, watching as an alien craft descended with terrifying precision into the heart of the city. The ship, a massive organic construct, shimmered with iridescent hues. It emitted an unsettling hum that vibrated through the ground. "Do we engage, my lord?" Cassius asked, his hand tightening around the hilt of a dagger fashioned from pure silver, a weapon designed for other vampires, not these extraterrestrial invaders. "Not yet," Alaric said, his voice cold and steady. "We must observe first. These creatures are not bound by the rules of our world. To act recklessly would be to court annihilation." The two vampires melted into the shadows, their movements silent as they approached the landing site. From their vantage point atop a derelict skyscraper, they watched as alien figures emerged from the ship. The invaders were unlike anything Alaric had encountered in his centuries of existence. They were tall and serpentine, with elongated limbs and no discernible faces. Their bodies seemed to ripple with energy, and their movements were both graceful and unerringly precise. They carried strange weapons that emitted beams of light, disintegrating anything in their path. One of the aliens raised its weapon, pointing it toward a group of desperate human survivors who had taken refuge in the ruins. The beam of light fired, reducing the humans to ash in an instant. Cassius tensed beside Alaric, his fangs bared in anger. "They are exterminating everything," Cassius hissed. "Humans, animals, even the forest, they leave nothing alive." Alaric's mind raced. This was not a simple conquest. This was annihilation. The aliens sought to strip Earth of all life, leaving nothing but barren wastelands in their wake. The implications were clear. If the vampires did not act, they too would be wiped out. That night, Alaric convened a meeting of his council in the crypts beneath the city. The chamber, carved from ancient stone, was lit by flickering torches. Around the table sat the elders of his clan, their faces grim. "The invaders are not mere conquerors," Alaric began, his voice commanding. "They are harbingers of extinction. They will not stop until every living thing on this planet is eradicated. This is no longer a human war. It is ours as well." One of the elders, a gaunt vampire named Victor, scoffed. "Why should we concern ourselves with the plight of humans? They are weak, expendable. We have survived plagues, wars, and inquisitions without lifting a finger to help them." And where will we feed when the humans are gone? Alaric shot back, his eyes burning with intensity. Where will we hide when the forests are ash and the oceans boil away? These creatures are beyond anything we have ever faced. If we do not act, we will share the same fate as the humans. The chamber fell silent. Alaric's words hung heavy in the air, their truth undeniable. "What do you propose, my lord?" another elder asked. Alaric's gaze swept the room. "We must unite, not just among ourselves, but with the humans. Together, we stand a chance. Alone, we are doomed." The suggestion was met with murmurs of dissent. Vampires had spent centuries avoiding human conflicts, thriving in the shadows while mortals waged their petty wars. But this was different. The stakes had never been higher. Before the council could argue further, the ground above them trembled. Dust rained down from the ceiling as a deafening roar filled the crypt. The vampires rushed to the surface, emerging into the ruins of the city. An alien craft loomed overhead, its massive form blocking out the moonlight. Beams of energy rained down, obliterating buildings and sending plumes of fire into the sky. The vampires scattered, their supernatural speed allowing them to evade the destruction. Alaric stood his ground, his eyes fixed on the ship. "This is just the beginning," he muttered. "They are testing us, gauging our strength." Cassius appeared at his side, his face pale. "What do we do now, my lord?" Alaric's expression hardened. "We fight. But first, we must find allies." As the alien craft retreated into the night, leaving behind a smoldering wasteland, Alaric made his decision. The time for isolation was over. If vampires were to survive, they would have to forge an alliance with those they had long despised. The war for Earth had begun. The elder vampire turned to his followers, his voice ringing with authority. "Gather the clan. We go to the humans. This is a battle we cannot win alone." The vampires disappeared into the night, their forms swallowed by the shadows. The city lay in ruins, but hope still flickered in the darkness. For the first time in centuries, vampires would step into the light, not as predators but as warriors in a fight for survival. The smell of charred wood and scorched earth lingered in the air as Alaric led his clan through the ruins of the city. The vampires moved as one, their forms barely visible in the gloom. To mortal eyes, they were nothing more than fleeting shadows, a silent procession of predators now forced to reconsider their place in a world teetering on the edge of annihilation. Alaric's mind churned with strategies and possibilities. For centuries, his kind had avoided direct involvement with humanity, preferring the solitude of the night to the chaos of human affairs. Yet now, the destruction wrought by the invaders left him with little choice. They could not win this war alone. The meeting point was an abandoned subway station deep beneath the city. Alaric had chosen the location carefully. Its labyrinthine tunnels offered concealment, and the cold, damp air was soothing to his kind. The humans, however, would not be so comfortable. That imbalance was deliberate, a subtle reminder of who held the upper hand. As they approached the station, Alaric raised a hand, signaling the clan to halt. Cassius appeared at his side, his keen senses alert. "Do you think they'll come, my lord?" "They'll come," Alaric replied. Desperation is a powerful motivator. Minutes later, faint footsteps echoed through the tunnel. A group of men emerged from the darkness, their faces grim and streaked with soot. They carried a motley assortment of weapons: rifles, makeshift explosives, and crude melee implements. At their head was a man whose presence immediately drew Alaric's attention. Tall and broad-shouldered, the human leader moved with a soldier's discipline. His face was scarred, his eyes hard with experience. He approached Alaric without hesitation, though his men hung back, their fear evident. "You're the vampire they call Alaric," the man said, his voice steady. "I am," Alaric replied, his crimson eyes meeting the man's unflinchingly. "And you are?" "Commander Elias Greaves," the man said. "Former military. Now just trying to keep what's left of humanity alive." Alaric inclined his head slightly. "A noble goal. one we now share. Greaves's eyes narrowed. You've spent centuries preying on humans. Why should I believe you care about our survival now? Alaric allowed himself a faint smile. Because without you, my kind will not survive either. The invaders do not discriminate. To them, we are all vermin to be exterminated. Greaves considered this for a moment before nodding. Fair enough. What do you propose? A partnership, Alaric said. Your weapons, your numbers, combined with our strength and abilities. Together, we can fight back. Greaves's men muttered among themselves, their distrust evident. One of them, a younger man with a bandaged arm, stepped forward. And what's to stop you from turning on us once this is over? Alaric's smile disappeared, replaced by a cold, serious expression. Survival is a stronger bond than you realize. We stand together, or we fall together. Those are the only options. Greaves raised a hand, silencing his men. He's right. We don't have the luxury of mistrust right now. With the terms established, the two groups began to plan. The vampires brought centuries of combat experience, their supernatural abilities allowing them to infiltrate and sabotage the alien forces in ways humans could not. Meanwhile, the humans provided knowledge of technology and strategy, as well as a resilience that impressed even the vampires. As the night wore on, a sense of camaraderie began to form. Cassius found himself working alongside a human sniper, comparing notes on tactics. Meanwhile, Victor, one of the elder vampires who had initially opposed the alliance, grudgingly admitted the humans' resourcefulness. At the center of it all, Alaric and Greaves stood side by side, poring over a map of the city. The invaders' movements were unpredictable, but their objective was clear: a massive alien construct in the city's heart. It pulsed with energy, its purpose unknown, but its presence was a beacon of the enemy's dominance. We'll need to strike there, Greaves said, pointing to the construct. It's the nerve center of their operation. If we can take it out, we might have a chance. It won't be easy, Alaric said. The energy emanating from that thing is unnatural. It weakens even us. Then we'll need a distraction, Greaves said. Something to draw their forces away while a smaller team infiltrates and plants charges. Alaric nodded. My kind will handle the distraction. We are adept at creating chaos, and my men will lead the infiltration, Greaves said. But we'll need one of you with us. Your abilities could make the difference. Alaric considered this. Sending one of his own into such danger was risky, but he saw the logic in Greaves's plan. He turned to Cassius. You will go? Cassius hesitated but nodded. As you command, my lord. With the plan in place, the alliance began to take shape. Vampires and humans worked side by side, sharing knowledge and resources. Trust was still fragile, but necessity forced cooperation. As dawn approached, the two leaders stood at the station's entrance, watching the first light of day break over the ruined city. Do you believe this will work? Greaves asked. It must, Alaric said. Failure is not an option. Greaves glanced at the vampire, his expression thoughtful. You know, I never thought I'd be fighting alongside a creature like you. And I never thought I'd be fighting to save humanity, Alaric replied. But fate has a way of surprising us. The two men stood in silence, united by a shared purpose. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but for the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered in the darkness. Together, they would face the enemy. Together, they would fight for survival. The city's heart was a battlefield. The alien construct loomed above the ruins, pulsating with an eerie, otherworldly light. Its spires crackled with energy, casting long shadows over the shattered remains of skyscrapers and streets littered with debris. The air hummed with tension as the alliance prepared for their final assault. Alaric stood at the forefront of his clan, his crimson eyes fixed on the alien fortress. Around him, vampires melded with the shadows, their forms indistinct in the dim light. Behind them, Greaves's human fighters secured their gear, their faces grim but resolute. "This is it," Greaves said, stepping up beside Alaric. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of the moment. "The charges are primed. All we need is time to get them into position." "You'll have it," Alaric replied, his voice calm. "We will keep the enemy occupied. Ensure your men succeed." Greaves nodded and turned to address his team. "This is our moment. If we succeed, we cripple their operations. If we fail," he let the words hang in the air, "we don't fail. Let's move." The plan was simple but perilous. While the vampires launched a frontal assault to draw the alien forces away, Greaves and his infiltration team would slip through the chaos, plant the explosives, and destroy the construct from within. The first strike came without warning. Alaric led his clan in a swift, brutal attack, descending upon the alien sentries like a storm. Their claws and fangs tore through metal and flesh alike. The invaders caught off guard by the ferocity of the assault. The vampires moved with supernatural speed, their dark forms darting between the towering machines that served as the enemy's enforcers. But the aliens were quick to adapt. Alaric barely dodged a searing beam of energy that scorched the ground where he had stood moments before. Around him, his clan fought with ruthless efficiency, but the invaders' advanced weaponry took its toll. "Hold the line!" Alaric shouted, his voice cutting through the cacophony. "Do not relent." Cassius, fighting beside him, nodded grimly. "They're stronger than we anticipated," he said, driving his blade into the core of an alien soldier. "They are," Alaric agreed, his fangs bared in a snarl. "But so are we." Meanwhile, Greaves and his team navigated the labyrinth of rubble and alien machinery, their movements deliberate and silent. Cassius, assigned to accompany the humans, proved invaluable. His heightened senses and agility allowed them to avoid patrols and bypass security measures. As they neared the construct's base, Greaves turned to Cassius. "We'll plant the charges here," he said, gesturing to a cluster of glowing conduits. "This should destabilize the entire structure." Cassius nodded, his gaze sharp. "Be quick. The longer we linger, the greater the risk." The team worked swiftly, setting the explosives while Cassius stood guard. The construct loomed above them, its energy pulsating like a living thing. Every shadow seemed to writhe with menace, and the air was thick with an oppressive, otherworldly presence. Back on the front lines, Alaric and his clan were being pushed to their limits. The alien reinforcements were relentless, their advanced technology giving them the upper hand. For every invader they felled, more seemed to take their place. "Alaric," Cassius's voice crackled over the communicator. "The charges are set. We need more time to retreat." Alaric gritted his teeth, slashing through an alien soldier before responding. "Understood. We'll give you as much as we can." Turning to his clan, he raised his voice. "Focus your attacks. Drive them back." The vampires surged forward with renewed ferocity, their coordinated strikes disrupting the enemy's formations. Alaric fought at the forefront, a whirlwind of claws and fangs. Yet even as they gained ground, he knew it was a losing battle. Their strength was finite, and the enemy's numbers seemed endless. Greaves's team had just cleared the blast radius when the aliens realized what was happening. A piercing, mechanical screech filled the air, and the construct's energy output spiked. The ground trembled as alien soldiers converged on the human's position. "Move!" Greaves shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Cassius brought up the rear, his blade flashing as he cut down pursuers. Despite his efforts, the team was outnumbered and outgunned. A sudden explosion threw them off their feet, and when Cassius looked up, he saw a towering alien enforcer bearing down on them. Before the creature could strike, Alaric appeared, a blur of motion. He slammed into the enforcer with enough force to shatter stone, his claws raking across its armored carapace. The alien staggered but recovered quickly, retaliating with a devastating blow that sent Alaric sprawling. Greaves and his men opened fire, their bullets finding weak points in the enforcer's armor. The creature roared, its massive limbs flailing as it tried to fend off the combined assault. "Fall back," Alaric ordered, his voice strained but unyielding. "I'll hold it here." Cassius hesitated. "My lord." "Go," Alaric snapped, his crimson eyes blazing. "This is my fight." Reluctantly, Cassius obeyed, pulling Greaves and the others away from the battlefield. Alaric turned his full attention to the enforcer, his body coiled with tension. "You will not take this world," he growled, his voice low and menacing. "Not while I stand." The battle between man, vampire, and machine raged until Greaves and his team reached a safe distance. With a final, silent signal, the explosives detonated. The construct erupted in a blinding explosion, its energy cascading outward in a wave of destruction. The shockwave swept through the battlefield, tearing through alien forces and leaving devastation in its wake. When the dust settled, the construct was gone, reduced to smoldering ruins. Alaric emerged from the rubble, his body battered but unbroken. Around him, the surviving vampires and humans regrouped, their faces etched with exhaustion and relief. Greaves approached, his expression a mixture of gratitude and respect. "You held the line," he said. "And you delivered the blow," Alaric replied, his voice weary. "Together, we've achieved what neither of us could alone." As dawn broke over the city, the Alliance stood together, their shared victory a testament to their resilience. The cost had been great, but for the first time since the invasion began, there was hope. Together, they would rebuild, and together, they would face whatever came next.